Now that I completed my negative carrier, I'm gonna go ahead with the next step. And I set up my iPhone. You guys could set up a tablet or anything else on this small stool. I have on my cell phone, I pulled up a pure white image. I turned up my brightness to 100%. And I put it in full frame so it could cover as much of the negative as possible so I could have a brighter light source. I'm demoing this in a brighter room just for the sake of being able to record it, but you guys may want to start shooting your negatives in a darker room so you don't have the risk of any reflection on top of the surface of the negative. I'm gonna clean the surface of my phone, make sure that there's nothing on there. So when I go to add my mask on top of that, I have to make sure that I clean the front and the back of the negative. And you don't want any bit of dust or dirt or even fingerprints to show up on all your images, because it's gonna make your work after a lot harder in post-production. So I have my negative carrier now set below, and this is my tripod. My tripod has the capability of taking this center post and unscrewing it and taking it out and flipping it so this center post goes straight down. A lot of tripods have this capability, but what you would need to do, I already took this out. I have this like rubber stopper that was in my center post. Before you flip it, you have to take this out and you should be able to flip it. But basically what I just did is that I flipped the rod of the center post here, and now the tripod head I'm gonna lift over my negative carrier, and I'll be able to attach my camera here so the camera is shooting straight down. One of the reasons why I chose this setup to have this like mini stool is because then it makes it a lot easier for my tripod to go right over the stool between the legs and have there be enough space. So this is what my finished setup looks like. I chose a really small stool so then my legs of my tripod could fit over it. I changed the position of the center rod on my tripod, and then my camera is directly on top of the image. So right now I would have to center this. So I could move my tripod around. I could raise the head of the tripod. Once you finish focusing and you finish making sure that you're not picking up pixels from your light source, you're set to go. And you could see here that I have a f11. My light meter reading is right where it should be at a 1/15 of a second, and my ISO is 640. I decided to keep my f-stop on f11 because I was having some issues on the side of my image. You could keep your f-stop at f11. You can also bring down your f-stop. You could open up to bring it to f8 to make sure, depending on your cameras and your lenses, to make sure that you're not picking up on those pixels from your light source. Before I go ahead and start shooting, I purchased a mini level, and with this level I can check to see, let me see if I could get a good image, my levels. So right now it's completely off level. You can see that this bubble level, they're all off. This one's a little close, but I'm gonna attempt to straighten this to make sure that I have as close as possible my surfaces to be leveled. You can see here that after a few tries, I finally got my surface of the camera level with the ground. I made sure that my tripod legs were completely spread out and that everything's really consistent. So I got this like mini level. This is a bubble level for about $2.99 in the hardware store, and it works really great. And you can see that I also framed out my image so then I have as much space as possible to work with. Another thing that you should do is that you should place your camera on manual focus and really zoom in to see if the areas of your picture are all in focus. And I could see here that everything is pretty much in focus. And what I'm looking for is any pixel information that might be showing up, which I have none. So here I have an example, and I want to show you what those pixels look like when you magnify. And I'm going to scroll to the right, and you can see here that you have the pixels of your screen showing up. This was done because my mask was too close to the light source. So when you elevate your mask, your negative carrier, which is the same thing, you get rid of these pixels. This is something that you do not want to be able to see in your images, because that really gets in the way of all your images. You're usually not going to see it in the center, which is where I am now. You potentially see this, and not also on the top or bottom. You're really going to be able to see this on the sides of your image, like right here. So once you're finished focusing and everything looks correct, you're going to want to place your camera on a timer, because the vibrations are really going to show up on your image. And I have my camera placed on a timer for 10 seconds, and this should be enough time for the camera to be able to steady itself. So now you can see the 10 seconds counting down. So there's no issue with camera shake. So now if I play back my image, I'm always going to want to double check that this image is focused. So I'm going to zoom in, and then I am going to, depending on your camera model, you should not see, especially on these edges, you're not going to want to see any of the pixelation. So I think what's happening now is not so much pixelation on my end, it's just my video picking up information, but I'm pretty clear. So I have focus from side to side, and then I have focus from top to bottom. So I'm kind of scrolling. A good way to focus also is by looking at your sprocket holes, or looking at any information near your sprocket holes. So then you make sure that you're in focus. So I'm here focused on my sprocket holes. So now I'm going to start doing my brackets, and then we'll be ready to edit some of these images in post-production.